Hey everybody, Seth Mates, JJ Cooper here. We're doing another of our card breaks, and sometimes you hit big, like last week when we hit a superfractor, and sometimes you get a lot of commons. And so, through the magic of editing, we're not going to have you sit through us open a 1991 senior baseball pack, which you may not even remember the senior baseball packs did exist, but we did. We opened them, and no, we don't need to kind of have you enjoy that. We don't need to go live on that. But through the magic of editing, Seth, we are going to jump straight to the best of the packs that we had, which is the Baseball America set. We're a little biased here, but it really was. It was easily the best of what we opened. The 1989 top AA prospects. There is a lot of not just remember some guys, but some really good cards in there. It just was a good reminder, though, Seth, that not every pack you open is a home run.
Back in the so-called junk wax era, the late 80s, early 90s, they were producing baseball cards like crazy. And with all due respect to Brandon Marsh card is actually just from a few years ago, but the Bubba Crosbys, the Todd Van Poppels of the world, you don't get quite the bang for your buck you do these days in baseball cards. That being said, Baseball America comes through once again because, as my favorite comic John Mulaney likes to say, that's when the day went from good to great. The 1989 Baseball America AA All-Star Prospect set is fantastic. There's Hall of Famers. There's huge names. We're not going to ruin any of it, but we are going to cut right to that right now, and we hope you like it. And again, let us know what you're thinking of these breaks. We are going to be giving these cards away, so stay tuned for that also. If you're interested, we got a lot of fun stuff. Walk down memory lane here. But I love stuff like this, JJ, and JJ's analysis, as always, is spot on, so we hope you enjoy. But let's skip ahead here to our last pack, JJ, because this is not even really a pack. This is actually the set. This is a set made by Baseball America, 1989, the Eastern League, Southern League, and Texas League top prospects. We are going to have some absolute banger players in here. We're also going to have some players who were all-stars that year who potentially I and you and others have never heard of. JJ, I guarantee you, has heard of them. So we're going to see who we get here. We're just going to go through these. Let me make sure that we can see what we're getting here, and we're just going to go very... We have Wes Chamberlain.
Wes Chamberlain, yep.
Okay. Travis Fryman.
Okay, so that's right now. We already have a guy who had a very long. Again, Wes Chamberlain had a lengthy career, but Travis Fryman. Yeah, keep rolling. I'm sorry, I'm not going to interrupt you. Keep rolling.
No, you're not interrupting at all here. We have Steve Adkins of the Albany Yankees. Jason Grimsley, I recognize him. He looks like he's being, held hostage here for the Reading Phillies. Bernie Williams went on to a pretty decent big league career. Good call by Baseball America. This is a pretty good card. Tino Martinez, speaking of the Yankees championships of the late 90s here, then of the Williamsport Bills. Bo Allred of the Canton Akron Indians. Rodney Imes of the Albany Yankees, who never, as far as I know, went on to do a whole lot in the bigs. If anything, we'll come back to him.
Scott Cooper, it was him, and there was two third baseman prospects coming up through the Red Sox system at that time. One was Scott Cooper. The other, traded for Larry Anderson, was Jeff Bagwell.
Did pretty well. Pat Combs of the Reading Phillies. Eric Anthony of the Columbus Mudcats.
I had a lot of his cards in the late 80s.
Did you? Darryl Kyle of the Columbus Mudcats.
Late Darryl Kyle. I was actually at a Reds game when I heard the news that he passed.
Yeah, he passed away, I believe, in his sleep. It was in 2002. I remember that because I was in Columbus, Ohio at the time. I remember where I was also.
I was literally in the ballpark watching a Reds game in Cincinnati, and it was before cell phones, so it was like more of like hearing it passed down the line for someone else hearing it.
Yeah, very, very sad story. Steve Avery, future World Series champion of
the first number one prospect in Baseball America top 100 prospects history.
Wow, there you go. So I'm putting this card aside. I'm going to get this guy graded. I'm going to keep that one in pretty good shape, actually. I'm putting that one on the stand here no matter who else.
I think you got a pretty good one here, too.
Yeah, Mr. Marquise Grissom of the Jacksonville Expos.
I will specify now senior, considering Marquise Grissom Jr. is now pitching, Georgia Tech, and now pitching in the minors.
I'm going to start for my PC, my personal collection. I'm going to start collecting guys whose dads also played in the big leagues. Speaking of people whose kids are now in the big leagues, Delino DeShields, also of the now the Jacksonville Expos.
Yep, I mean that's a two back-to-back to get Grissom and DeShields, but like that. By the way, that's Delino DeShields Jr. just made our Baseball America 21st Century All Rule 5 team. He was on that. So, but DeShields Sr. had the better career.
Yeah, I miss the Expos logo so much. And if you can see it here, he's on the Jacksonville Expos. So they just took the red and the white from here, which forms a J, and they left off the blue, and that's the Jacksonville hat. I love that. We have Brian Lane of the Chattanooga Lookouts. We have Bob Hamlin of the Memphis Chicks, who had made a career as a DH for the Royals, right? Correctly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, JJ.
I'm saying he rookie of. I mean, it was kind of a brief career, but his early Royals career was quite impressive.
Yeah. We have Scott Leyes.
Yeah, rookie of the year in '94. Sorry to interrupt one more time, but rookie of the year in '94. I want to make sure I was right on that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Rookie of the year in the strike shortened season. Had some pop in his bat. Scott Leyes of the Orlando Twins. Mm-hmm. Paul Sorrento of the Orlando Twins. He went on to do some
looking
stuff
skinnier than he was later, because again, he was got some power.
I'm not casting any aspersions on Mr. Sorrento, but there were a lot of players who were skinnier in 1989 than they later went on to be. I'm not saying anything about Mr. Sorrento. I'm speaking in generalities. We have Howard Farmer, a lot of Jacksonville Expos on this team. That team the Expos really were poised for big things in that era, weren't they?
The Expos, DeShields and Grissom, I think were both part of this. They were part of what we loved to call at the time draft bonanzas, where a team would have a ton of draft picks, and we would always kind of look at, they're going to dominate the draft. And the thing about it is usually they didn't, because teams wouldn't like quadruple their draft signing bonus budget for those years. So they would try to go cheap on some of them. And then that would be kind of like that would come back to bite them. But the Expos at that time, which they did again, DeShields and Grissom, there was a guy coming out of Jones County in my area, Willie Green. There were some others who didn't hit, but like it was something where they very much kind of had a stretch there of a really good farm system.
Cool. And it had the strike shortened season not happened, they were rocking and rolling. Who knows what might have been. And asterisk to the whole thing is technically they did go on to win a World Series championship in 2019. So technically, we'll give them that on a technicality. You ever heard of this guy, Robin Ventura, JJ, of the Birmingham?
Yeah, that one's pretty good. He was just coming off of a record-setting hitting streak at Oklahoma State at that point.
Yeah, I'm gonna start putting some of these on the other stands here, because I think that this set has been the.
I mean, this set is so much better than the other sets as far as dudes.
We have Wayne Edwards of the Birmingham Barons. Ray Lankford of the Arkansas Travelers had a good career with St. Louis.
Very good career.
Yeah. Andy Bennis, speaking of guys who went on to have good careers, of the Wichita Wranglers. Jose Offerman, we're on a run right here. This is a banger.
Again, these are way more bangers. Like these are the worst guys in this set are kind of generally better than the better guys in some of the other sets.
Yeah.
Jose Offerman, who shortstop at the time, did move off of that. Like one of the few guys I can really come up with whose big league errors eventually moved him off of shortstop. Most guys who move off of shortstop is because of range. The errors usually they get.
Oh, you're muted, JJ. We lost your audio there for a second.
Yep, I'm sorry. I'm back now. But Jose Offerman,
tape, everybody, enjoy it.
Yeah, Jose Offerman, like he actually moved off the position because the errors were too much.
Well, I just got a quick peek at
which reminds me of the Pedro Guerrero quote from the earlier years for the Dodgers, which was what were you thinking at the end there? And it was, don't hit it to me, because he was playing third, I think, and don't hit it to Sachs. Steve Sachs was at second. And so it was like, yeah, those two guys were not guys you wanted them to hit the ball to.
So we got Jose Offerman. I saw who the next card was. I moved him to the back here because it's going to be a banger. I want to end on a banger. We have Dean Palmer of the Tulsa Drillers.
Another good career.
Yeah. Julio Valera, another of my early 90s Mets prospects.
I was going to say, isn't that the second Valera card we gotten in this?
I think so. My PC is going to double after this one. Sammy Sosa. You ever heard of Sammy Sosa, JJ?
See, and this is when the Rangers were insane, their minor leagues, because they had him, they had Juan Gonzalez, they had Ivan Rodriguez kind of all coming up at the same time. You're not saving that Gary DiSarcina. Nothing against Gary.
No, I'm not saving the DiSarcina. I'm going to put this back here, the Sosa. So we got Gary DiSarcina here. And then our last card, which is the one that I saved, and you've already said his name, Juan Gonzalez.
I figured he would be in this set. Like I really did, because he was, again, Juan Gonzalez, can you imagine Juan Gonzalez and Sammy Sosa and Ivan Rodriguez were all coming up at the same time, and the Rangers, basically that didn't drive them to anything. They had some success, but yeah, that's a very good card, obviously, as well. Juan Gonzalez, to me, to kind of like when we talk about Giancarlo Stanton and will Giancarlo Stanton be a Hall of Famer? If he doesn't get to 500 home runs, I think that Juan Gonzalez could be the example of a guy where you're saying, I'm not 100% sure that he is going to be a Hall of Famer. Like,
Why
I
is
think
Juan
that
Gonzalez
Juan
not in the
Gonzalez,
Hall?
434 career home runs, 2 MVPs.
Why is he not in the Hall of Fame?
Because I think, like, at the end of the day, like, he's part of that mass, like Fred McGriff we just saw. Like, there was a mass of guys kind of all that time where you kind of had to ask the question of whether is 434 home runs enough, which sounds crazy but that kind of is, I think the question is like, is the era that he played in one where you say, like, I'm looking at, and Gonzalez peaked out at 5.2% of of Hall of Fame votes. You need that's not even, that kept him on the ballot. He was on the ballot for 2 years, and you're looking at it, and he's 48th all time in home runs. I would say that nowadays, 48th all time, that's kind of something that kind of works against you a little bit. And again, I think that Giancarlo Stanton's going to make it, but I do think 500 home runs might be really important for him. By the way, Stanton has 429 home runs right now. Just to
Does he have that many already? I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Respectfully to Mr. Stanton, I feel like he's hurt 3/4 of every season. So that seems
okay. Here's the other reason when you say, why is Juan Gonzalez not in? Andrew Jones also has 434 home runs and is not in.
okay.
Now, Gonzalez had a better batting average and all that, but one of these guys had 434 career home runs and is considered one of the best center fielders of all time defensively. The other is a corner outfielder with 434 home runs. That's where this gets tough.
Yeah, and that's fair. Let's look quickly at some of the bigger hits we got in this one. We got Ray Langford. We have Andy Benes. We have Jose Offerman. We have Darryl Kyle. We have Dean Palmer. We have Travis Fryman. We have Marquise Grissom. We have Ray Langford. On the stand here, we have Juan Gonzalez, Bernie Williams, Robin Ventura, Steve Avery, Sammy Sosa, Tino Martinez. JJ, I'm thinking when we post this, let's just cut the video to start right at the Baseball America pack, because the first part was okay, but this real quick, JJ, before we take it home here, tell us a little bit, because I know this is before your time at BA. I think you started a few years after this.
I was a reader not long after this. This was a little bit before, because I was growing up in Perry, Georgia, and there were no newsstands in Perry, Georgia, where you could find a Baseball America. But I went to college at the University of Georgia, and there was a newsstand in Athens that had Baseball America. But this is kind of my dawning of prospectum, of loving prospects and all. And this is really, this is BA. BA founded in 81. So BA's not even 10 years old at this point. Baseball America's kind of pointing a spotlight at the minors in a way that really hadn't been done in this way. Sporting News had looked at the minors before, but Sporting News kind of looked at it as who's winning, in AA, who's winning the AAA title in the Pacific Coast League, and Baseball America looked at it as who are the guys that you want to know because they're going to be the stars of the future. And this was a curated set here. So you see the difference. The curated set here of, we're just going to pick out the guys. And again, I'm not saying everyone made it. There were a couple of pitchers in there where you go, okay, cup of coffee. But the hit rate on this was pretty good. There are Hall of Famers, there are near Hall of Famers, there are longtime big leaguers, and there are kind of the what could have been. Steve Avery was on a Hall of Fame career early in his big league career. This is, I say that pretty easily because on a team that also had John Smoltz and Tom Glavine, he was every bit as good he was every bit kind of as vital for them in those postseasons early in his career. The difference is that Steve Avery, unfortunately, and we know things differently now. Like, we can say that we've gotten too cautious on this, but at the same time, back then when Steve Avery was coming up, you did kind of treat 19, 20, 21-year-old pitchers really that much difference than you did 35-year-old pitchers. And so Steve Avery threw 210 innings in the big leagues as a 21-year-old, 233 as a 22-year-old, and 223 as a 23-year-old. He got Cy Young votes as a 21-year-old. He was an all-star in 93. And you're like, everything you can have here is pointing towards greatness. And that was the last really good year of his career. Shoulder injury, if I remember correct. Injuries kind of derailed him. He was basically out of the big leagues with the exception of a brief cup of coffee by the time he turned 30.
He's also on a staff with Maddox and Glavine and Smoltz, so it cannot be understated just how loaded that Braves pitching staff was for about a decade there, coming off of the 1989 season.
Especially that 93 team, because you had Maddox had come over in free agency, so you had Maddox, Smoltz, Glavine, Avery as your top four, and who, by the way, made 36, 35, 36, and 35 starts. Number 5 starter on that team, you might remember because.
Oh God, I know this. He was on my first fantasy team ever. He was on it. Tell me, I don't
Pete
have
Smith.
Pete Smith, jeez.
Who also, by the way, came up and was part of that Young Guns, because Pete Smith and Derek Lilliquist were two guys who were supposed to be part of that Young Guns, and Kent Merker, who ended up in their pen. The other thing I'll just say, just having called up the 93 Braves, the 93 Braves used 13 pitchers for the entirety of the season. Let me make sure. Hold on. How many they actually, yes. That's it. They used 13 pitchers the entire season from day one to the end of the season. Teams now have 13 pitchers on their roster at every moment of the season. And when I say that, Pedro Borbon threw 1.2 innings for them. He was their 13th pitcher. Marvin Freeman threw 23. Everyone else, basically, they had the same bullpen from day one of the season to the end of the season with almost no exceptions. They had the same rotation. Kent Merker made 6 starts. Pete Smith made 14. But by the way, this is also in the time where, but there's an off day. Okay, well, Maddox will make another start. We'll just skip Pete Smith this time. Again, it was a different, it's 1993, but it might as well be 1903 from a standpoint of how different pitchers were used then versus now.
And it helps when your number one starter can throw an 85 pitch complete game to the point where he does it so often it's now named after him. So
he could do Maddox's very regularly.
Yes, Maddox was very good at the Maddoxes. JJ, this was really fun. Baseball America sets from back in the day are fantastic. We got a few others we're going to be opening here in coming weeks. Gets me even more excited for the upcoming Bowman draft release, which is the early December, when we're going to see a lot of prospects, et cetera, too. This was really fun. Thank you very much for your expertise. Any final words or thoughts?
No, again, this was fun. I'm glad we ended with a banger. We ended with the fun because I figured that would be the best set, but that was definitely, if we're stacking them, I would say the senior league set is the bottom of the basement. No doubt the 89 BA set, which I have seen before, because this may have been something from the BA back offices at some point. Is that
this is from the eBay back office?
Okay, that's from the eBay back office, but
I've had these
routed that way because it may have been like when we closed down the office and let people just come on in. We gave away a lot.
I've had these in my possession since long before I ever even worked at the Baseball America here, and these have been sealed and closed. And after 35 years, it took me way too long to do that math. You can tell I need more coffee. They're finally free, and we'll get them graded. And by the way, we're going to be giving some of these away as the coming weeks and months go on. So stay tuned for that too. He is JJ.
So yeah, tell us what you would. The way I would end it is hey, if you're enjoying this, what would you love to see us break at some point? We kind of enjoy doing some of these throwbacks because, again, we love talking about old baseball players in addition to breaking some of the new packs.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. He is JJ. I am Seth, and we will see you next time.